15 years ago, I remember the first question was, okay, we have a box in which we have some syringes, some vials, and we have to ship it at to weight. How can we do that? Knowing that at that time, probably 15 or 20 years ago, the box was a carton box without any protection. I remember in India, one doctor told me, hey, when we receive a vaccine with cold pack, what we do, we check if the cold pack are frozen. If they are not frozen, we reject the product. When you have to ship a product at 2 to 8, they say, well, 2 to 8, it's easy. 5 degrees, we have fridges and we can manage that easily. But to ship a product at -60 and to keep it at -60 is more challenging.
By chance, which was the value of the full container? Is that something that you can share or remember?
It was a full container of vaccine. It's what a huge value. It's $1 million.
All right. So, welcome to Cold Secrets. That's our first episode of a series of cold chain conversations, where we are covering between cold chain, pharma distribution, and all the challenges related to supply chain that may be applicable in the 21st century. Today we have a very special guest, um, but the best thing to introduce him is that he does it himself. Hello, Fabian.
Hello, Miguel. How are you?
Not bad. Can you please explain in a short sentence who you are?
So my name is Fabian de Paoli, and I have 40 years of experience in the pharma business.
Wow, not bad. 40 years. Um, in order to get to know you a bit better, I've prepared a bunch of short questions. So the structure is I will try to make a bunch of short questions. The idea is that you reply to them uh, precisely, so we will have enough time to go deeper into some of them. The short questions are mainly personal ones to get you know a bit better, and then we can start more on the professional side of your career. At the end of the episode, I will ask you a challenge, and but we will get there. Are you ready for the questions?
Yes, I am.
All right. Your name,
Fabian de Paoli,
age,
66,
which country do you live?
Belgium,
And if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Belgium.
You are in love of Belgium, okay?
Oh,
So,
it's a good compromise.
are you married?
Yes,
All right. What's your current job position?
I am external consultant.
Okay. What did you do before that?
Before that, I worked mainly with GSK vaccines in Belgium, and during that time, I went through different positions. And during the last, we can say, 15 years, I was head of cold chain distribution for the
Uh-huh.
vaccine business.
In Belgium as well.
Yes,
Uh, are you a sea or a mountain person?
mountain.
You prefer the mountain? Okay. There are not that many mountains in Belgium, I believe.
Well, yeah, but it's possible to have some nice trekking. So trekking, mountain, I prefer that compared with the sea.
Okay. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
La pasta.
Pasta. Yeah, you can share that later. But Fabian de Paoli, I mean, it's an Italian surname, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. My origin is Italian. My father was Italian, even if I born
Uh,
in Belgium, but I am mixed Italian and Belgium.
so you are still a pasta lover.
Yeah.
The best book or movie that you would recommend?
Difficult because I don't like to make a specific choice. It depends on the day, depends on my mood, and so I don't have a preference. Probably I remember I read a book, The Time of the Tiger, and it was a book about someone who at the beginning had huge problems, and the book was about the way he overcome all these problems, and at the end everything was fine. A bit like a Largo Winch, something like that.
Uh-huh. Okay.
It was a
Don't
nice
don't
book.
confuse it with the Eye of the Tiger. That's a song
No, no,
from
I mean that's the same.
that's
No,
not the
no.
same indeed.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Okay.
And
Uh if you please.
and the book, the the Green Line from Stephen King, I think. It was an history of someone who was in jail. Also
Uh-huh.
interesting history.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't read the book. I
Mhm.
watched the movie instead. There was a movie for that.
Yeah, I also, yeah. It was interesting to
Uh
see how this guy, he was there because he was condemned for death, and it was really interesting to understand his way of
indeed,
thinking
indeed.
and his relation with a small mouse, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We are almost done. Fabian, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Hmm. Superpower. Hmm. Peace in the world.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
love for
yeah,
everyone.
peace. Yeah, stop
No,
wars
fair
and
enough. I mean, I'm just making the question, so
yeah.
you give me the answer. So
Mm.
that's good. Um, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, which one would you choose?
Mm. An historical figure. Interesting question. Hmm. uh Historical figure. Probably an inventor, but I don't know which one. There are so many. An inventor who discovered the wheel.
Okay.
Yeah.
The will is really necessary if you live in Belgium and you want to go to the mountain. So that's a fair.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Very good. Uh, all right. If you could travel, if you could do time traveling, you can go to the future or to the past. Uh, to which time would you like to go?
to the future.
Okay, curious, curious, very good. And basically, because that's I believe the best question that defines someone. What do you normally do on a Sunday afternoon?
Sunday, I'm doing. I am at home Sunday afternoon very often after having done a nice bike run, a mountain bike run. So I am at home, walk with the dog, and spending time with my wife and my family this Sunday.
Perfect, very good. We are done with the questions. So you succeeded. You answered all of them. Very good. Uh, yeah. Now we have the time to deep dive in any of those questions if you would like, or maybe go more into depth into the business
Hmm.
challenges that you experienced during your 40 years career, which is not that bad.
Hmm.
Uh, so you already mentioned briefly during the quick questions and the introduction, but how or why do you believe that you were invited to this podcast? Why your opinion is relevant on that regards? What can you add to those type of
Ah, oh, I have some experience. As I said, I have 40 years of experience pharma business and 15 years of experience in cold chain and distribution and in logistics. And I like to share, we can say, ideas. I like to share some experience, and I'm always open to discuss any things. And I think what is the most important for me is really to share ideas and to spend time with people, uh, discussing what can be done, what can be improved, what can be done differently, and I'm really open to share what I know.
Perfect. And well, after all your career, you mentioned almost 40 years experience. In Have you seen any? What has been the main industry evolution in terms of logistics and cold chain?
Mhm.
Do you remember at your early stages of your career, which was the stage and where we are at this moment in time? So, what has been the evolution over
Yeah.
the years?
And probably that's linked with the previous question. When you say why, probably I'm interested to share what I know. I think when I looked at the last 15 years in cold chain and distribution, I had a great chance to really to build and to develop strategies, because 15 years ago, I remember the first question was, okay, we have a box in which we have some syringes, some vials, and we have to ship it at to weight. How can we do that? Knowing that at that time, probably 15 or 20 years ago, the box was a carton box without any protection. And
Hmm.
we at that time, people started to think, how can we protect the product during the distribution? Because at that time, we were really focused on the manufacturing itself, and honestly, the distribution was not so important. And the first step was to use a polystyrene box without any cold pack. Polystyrene will
Hmm.
protect and will protect or will reduce the risk having a temperature in a sudden temperature increase. It will slow down the effect of the external temperature on the product. That will be the first step. And then we say, okay, it's nice, it's polystyrene, but uh, what can we do better? Probably it will be nice to have to add some cold packs. And so we really built, and I was. It was really interesting to see that I was there to see the full evolution and to push for that evolution. Because as I said before, at the beginning, it was polystyrene alone, polystyrene with Colpack. Then it was more the discussion on the huge quantities, because at that time we had to ship more and more
Hmm.
products everywhere. At the beginning, it was more focused to Europe. Then we had to ship the product in the other part of the world, to the US and to other parts of Asia, Africa. And so we had to improve, we had to develop new concepts, large concepts. And for that, we identified some good suppliers. And with the suppliers together, we developed the concept of pallet shippers, in which we had the call packs. Also, the question on the data loggers. At the beginning, no data loggers, or it was only a threshold data loggers. More and more, and
Yeah.
progressively, we have added the loggers. And then, okay, we have a box. We protect more the product with the new systems and the call packs. Next question. The next question was, okay, but at the end, what do we know about the product itself? And we started to develop the concept of stability budget. I think we can
Hmm.
say that we were probably the first who were really pushing for the concept of stability concept. I made some presentation on that, and uh, and it was possible because in our organization, the cold chain team was really a transversal team. So we had the opportunity to discuss and to interact with the QC guys who were working on stability. So we were telling them, hey guys, we need some stability data, and we have to start from manufacturing.
Hmm.
And when I say manufacturing, and when the product is in the vial, so the cold chain starts at that time when the product is in the vial. So we have to ensure that the time product is exposed during filling and packaging will be fully considered in the overall stability data. So it's why we developed that budget, because budget means we have a defined period of time for a temperature excursion allowance, and we have to ensure that we will stay always within that
within the budget.
time. So we developed that concept by dividing it in multiple parts to ensure that at the end everybody in the supply chain will have some specific, we can say, buckets: manufacturing, first primary distribution, secondary distribution, and finally the last mile. So and also it was interesting. Every time I discussed with colleagues from other pharma companies, it was for them less easy because they were not well connected with QC.
Mhm.
It was two different world, but in our company it was possible to have. We can say we were in one single world.
What what I'm understanding from your explanation is that basically the evolution of the cold chain supply chain, it's mainly a story of discovery. So starting from a zero stage, it's a story of collaboration. It's a collaboration between the producer and the suppliers. It's a collaboration between logistics and the QC. So actually, the collaboration is what makes the evolution of that scope possible.
Yeah, and at the beginning the collaboration was more, we can say, inside the company,
Hmm.
and more we had to expand that collaboration to the external world. Meaning with when I say external world, it means the logistics provider, and also at one time we had discussion with the people who were responsible for the in-country distribution, and
Hmm.
we were supporting them. So at the end, it was really strange. At the beginning, we were really focused on our very specific operation, manufacturing, and 10, 15 years after, that collaboration was expanded to the entire supply chain. And at the end, for example, also I had the opportunity to visit some doctors in India
Hmm.
and to discuss with them what was their challenges when they receive vaccines, all these elements. So it was really nice to see that at the end it was possible to have the full end-to-end picture. End-to-end means we'll go and we'll consider also what will be the challenge at the level of the doctors. I remember in India, one doctor told me, "Hey, when we receive a vaccine with cold pack, what we do, we check if the cold pack are frozen. If they are not frozen, we reject the product." That's a simple explanation, a simple
Yeah,
example showing that it's really important to continue that collaboration, to train and to explain what is important.
absolutely, absolutely, fully agree. And despite the cold chain evolution has started many decades ago, I believe that it was quite recently when the vast majority of the population realized of the importance of it, especially on the pharmaceutical. And that was due mainly to the to the COVID crisis that we suffered a few years ago. That, in my opinion, was a real game changer and stressed out all the distribution mechanisms around the world because it was a global pandemic that we had to deal with. And yeah, I believe that there are so many challenges and people realized and understood the criticity of maintaining the cold chain along the journey, especially not only in Europe or the United States, but also on developing countries where that will be 10 times more difficult and challenging. It's,
Yes, and it's mainly due to the fact that the first, we can say, COVID vaccines were frozen vaccines, and deep
Mhm.
frozen vaccine at minus 60 degrees. And I think the people who were responsible for the in-country distribution were had to find solutions, and that was really interesting because before, when if we look at when we discuss with them, okay, when you have to ship a product at 228, they say, "Well, 228, it's easy.
Yeah,
5 degrees. We have fridges, and we can manage that easily. But to ship a product at minus 60 and to keep it at minus 60 is more challenging. For example, we
that's a
know that
completely
if
different story.
yeah, if you expose a vial, a small vial in which you have 1 ml of product at ambient temperature, and if that vial is frozen at minus 60 or minus 20 degrees, it takes 1 or 2 minutes to defrost. So it means
Hmm.
that you have really to take the right actions to keep that together. And it was interesting to see how they decided to manage that. Is really to build some a global distribution center, even or some main distribution or intermediate storage center, because they understood that the best way to ensure the product will be maintained at -60 is really to reduce the 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 spread of the product everywhere. Because if you spread the product everywhere, you don't. It's less easy to control what is done. So it's why they have installed everywhere in the world some regional distribution center where they have a specific capacity for storage at -60. And from this storage area, they have also arranged a way to ship the product directly to the vaccination site. So basically, what they did is to reduce the overall supply chain to the minimum in
Yeah,
order to ensure the product is under control. And that's the
make it
same as
easy.
when we discuss with the people who are responsible for cold chain in Africa, for example. It's a bit
Hmm.
the same issue. Huh? At the end, there are many articles on that, and the idea really is to think, take into consideration the number of intermediate storage location to consolidate, and from these consolidated storage area to ship the product to the small, we can say, vaccination site. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we cover, let's say, the evolution of cold chain, the big breakpoint that happened a few years back during the COVID vaccine, during the COVID crisis. But it's not done. I mean, there is still a long way to go. So, how do you see the evolution of that in the future? You mentioned before that you want to live in the future. How do you imagine yourself cold chain in 20, in 30 years time?
My dream and is really when you receive an Amazon shipment, it's possible to check at the delivery, and you know the flow at the delivery. You can check the different, we can say, receive information. Your product is in that location. In that location, you will receive it at X p.m. In the day. I think for me the dream, if we make that a bit similar for the the, the distribution of product under temperature control system, is really to give the opportunity to the people who will receive the product at the end to check the overall temperature profile of the product.
Okay,
For example, and it's possible, I think, because it's a question of attaching tags on the boxes, and tags can uh, are activated since the beginning until
and
the end, and
alert.
the tags are connected. And at the end, you can check, okay, my budget was X. Yeah, it's not allowed to share the budget, but imagine budget is 100. Where are we in that budget? Are we at 50, 55, 90, 98? Are we above? If we are above, we have to reject. So it's really to have the overall, we can say, visibility, and to have the possibility to check at the receipt if everything has been done according to the stability profile of the product. That's my dream.
Okay, so using your analogy of the Amazon package is at the moment that you get an Amazon package, you check, okay, what I receive, it's okay or not, and that's
Mm.
up to the receiver to verify that what they receive was aligned with the order. So it's kind of checking that the product that you receive is in the good condition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
So it's
physically, if you look at the product, it's not possible to see if everything has been
no.
done correctly, because it's even it's a glass, and you don't know it's a glass vial or it's a syringe with a liquid. It's not possible to see if that liquid has been frozen or not, because for some product, if they are frozen during the distribution, you will reduce we can say, the shelf life of the potency of the product. So it's
Hmm.
not possible to see that. It's not the same as a banana. When you receive a banana that was not well transported, you see some black spot on it, so it's visible. A
Yeah,
vaccine,
absolutely. It's
it's
not
not a
checking
therapy.
the latest stage. It's not about the latest stage. It's what happened along the journey.
Yeah,
Along the journey. Absolutely. So for to get your dream to so basically we need technology to make your dream true. That's what we need. There is any kind of technologies. So when you were explaining, it came to my mind some other use cases out of the pharma and cold chain distribution. For instance, to certify the origin of a wine. There are some regions that are well known. I'm from Barcelona, so for instance, if you want to say this wine has been produced in Barcelona area, then there are blockchain solutions that at the moment that you are taking the bottle of wine, you can scan a QR code and you see the whole evolution of that bottle. Where did it came from? And it certifies that the bottle really came from the area that it was supposed to be. So I'm I'm making that reflection. So how do you believe that some technologies which are quite trendy nowadays, blockchain is not that trendy anymore now, and now everyone is talking about AI. But how do you believe that the new technology trends can help us to make that reality true?
I think the main challenge is the need to capture the temperature. Uh, Location is not so
The
important.
capture.
What is really important is
Hmm.
how to capture the temperature during the full journey. And technologies exist, but the main issue is to have the right size of that, we can say, tag. And the main issue comes from the battery shelf life, and also that's probably the biggest challenge. So the battery. Second one will be the memory size, because sometimes that chips can also takes too much place. And when you think, if you see a vaccine box of with one syringe, there are
Hmm.
not so much space on it. So, and that's a problem. So f- little space, and
Uh-huh.
on
So
which
there is
you have
even
to put,
little space for the data logger.
yes, and battery size, and also the memory capacity. And that's a big challenge, because sometimes, if we really think globally, the shelf life
Uh-huh.
of typically of that pharma product is generally 3 years. So theoretically, you have to be able to capture that information during 3 years. So, so that's a challenge. Show me a battery able to track that value during 3 years, with also a chip with a memory capacity that will capture all these events during 3 years. That's the theoretical.
Okay,
That's a challenge.
but Fabian, that has the data needs to be stored in the chip itself. Cannot be that data is stored on the cloud.
Yeah, remove the chip. You are right.
Ah, okay, okay. Just from my understanding, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
doesn't need
No,
to
you are
stay
right.
there
You are
forever.
right.
No, but I really see your point. Like, it's not the same if we are making an airplane shipment that takes 1 or 2 days versus if we are doing a sea shipment that it can take up to 3 months, something like that. Yeah, so even for those sea shipments, finding a good sensor where the battery is lasting for 3 months can become a challenge. So
Not 3 months,
that's really true.
3 years, 3 years. That, that's the ultimate target, 3 years. And also, it's interesting to discuss the cost ownership, because at the end, who will be ready to pay for that? Because even if it costs not so much money, some vaccine costs less than €1
Hmm.
per dose. So that's the vaccine itself. How much will cost that type of device? Even if it is 10 cent, 20 cent, 30 cent, it's 10, 20, 30% of the vaccine
Yeah,
cost.
it's
Who, wi- who, who,
in,
who will be ready for that, to pay for that? Is it the final
it's
customer? Is it the people responsible for the distribution? Is it the pharma manufacturer?
Yeah, indeed. So we see different challenges. One is on the hardware equipment to be ready to respond in terms of capacity, but also cost to the increasing demand, because there is in fact an increasing demand of temperature control shipments.
Yeah,
So when we analyze data, currently today, around 30% of the new approval of the FDA are temperature control medicines, and that's an increasing trend over the years. So we will need those kind of solutions more and more. So that's an interesting. So after 30, 40 years career, there are still a long way to go.
yeah.
And do you see, because now everyone or every company is trying to adopt AI solutions to efficient their supply chain, their internal processes, etc. How do you see the role of AI on this cold chain area? Is that something that you find it's relevant, or do you think that the key point it's as you mentioned before, the increasing the capacity or defining the new type of chips and batteries to increase the period of recording?
When it's possible to monitor a temperature profile during shipment, even if it is a short shipment, it's challenging to understand how to interpret the temperature profile. You need some expertise. So probably AI can help doing that evaluation. For example, and because at the end it will be an integration of that temperature profile within that concept of stability budget. For example, if you have stability data at 25 degrees, if you have a temperature, even if your stability data covers weeks, some weeks, uh, if you have a temperature excursion at 25.1 degrees, how do you manage that? Today, it's a question of having someone responsible to take that decision. Okay, I will accept 25 by 1. Why? We have to explain. And I think putting these data into a system and using them based on using a system, an AI, an AI, we can say, system can help, because it's a question of integration, thresholds, what are the limits, and that's really, really challenging. Also, there are some articles explaining that concept of the how to measure the influence of the temperature on the product. Even if, as I said, even if you have data at 25 degrees, when you're it's totally different if your product. Imagine you have 1 week at 25 degrees. If you keep
Hmm.
your product doing 1 week at 24 degrees, the remaining budget will be really low. But if you have during that shipment 1 week at 9 degrees, 9 degrees is above 8. So currently, by default, we consider 9 equivalent to 25, 24. But it's
Yeah,
not true.
it's
From a
out of range.
biological,
That's my.
but it's not true, because from a biological perspective, the product will be less influenced at 9 degrees than at 24 degrees. So you have more availability for additional, we can say, excursion later. So it's really complex, and it's why AI can help managing.
Yeah, the way I see it, if I may, is like we fix the stability budget, the thresholds, and so on to make our life easier. It's in the bucket, out the bucket, in the range, out of the range. But the reality itself is a bit more complex than that. As you mentioned, is on 2 to 8. It's not the same if the product it's a 9, 10 degrees versus 20, 25. So that's not considered at this stage, isn't
No,
it?
no. Currently, by default, 9 is equal to 24, but it's not
Yeah.
true. If you look at Arrhenius law, there are some laws, but we don't know if these laws are applicable to all the biological products. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. And the concept of the Arrhenius law is say as you increase the temperature, the effect on the product will be exponential.
Yeah.
But it's not
Yeah.
always.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's linear, sometimes it's exponential. So at the end, so it means that at the end, if we really want to go in that direction, it will be needed to ask the pharma manufacturer to continue, we can say, developing the product knowledge by doing some additional stability data, in order to understand the behavior of the product exposed to temperature outside the storage temperature rate. And at the end, it will be the same question: who will pay for that? And so,
Uh,
first one, we have to find someone who will pay for that, and you have to explain them. If you pay for it, they have to receive back the money some way. That's another challenge, eh? Yeah.
one one way or another, Fabian. If it's needed and necessary, someone will need to pay for it. We are talking about medicines that goes to the main purpose of a medicine. It's saving life. So one way or another, I mean, it's a business, needs to be profitable, of course. But okay, if it's if it's a must in terms of safety of the product and so on, then some we need to make it happen. Before closing this part, I would like you to confirm. I mean, I captured which are the two main challenges. You mentioned, first of all, the capture of the information, and here we have a hardware challenge in terms of the different devices that we may have, capacity, chips, etc. And that's more a hardware-related challenge. But at the same time, we have a more intelligent challenge in terms of assessing the information that those sensors are capturing. And here is where the AI algorithm and all the machine learning technologies can play a role in order to assess in a smart way, not even or not only considering the in range, out of range, but be more aligned with the thermostability of the product itself on the product development, how they respond to certain deviation or changes in temperature. That's the, let's say, the software challenge or the assessment challenge that can play a very interesting role.
Mm.
And and coming back to your point on who should pay for that or how we are going to do it, I think it's a must to talk about the regulation, because at the end, regulation is one of the key factors influencing the different requirements that we have in terms of traceability, monitoring, and ensuring product safety. Um, I would like to start by having an overview about the evolution also on the regulation, what has happened along the years, and which are the main points that you see in a near future coming in terms of regulation.
When we looked at the regulation, it depends where you are in the world. For example, in Europe, they had issued the new regulation some years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago. And in that regulation, it's a GDP guideline. And
Hmm.
in Europe, it was clear. In that regulation, it's clearly written: product must be stored at 2 to 8. Must be stored within the defined temperature range. And it's clear, must be. But we have to understand that regulation is for the distribution, for the in-country distribution. And the position from the regulator was, we don't trust the people responsible for the shipments, for the distribution in the country. So it's why we are clear. They have to keep it at 2 to 8, because if we don't write that, there are some risks that they will manage not correctly the product from a temperature perspective. But it was nice to have that regulation. You have to keep it at 2 to 8. In the US, there is still not official regulation. They are working on a new GDP, but the new GDP guideline is not yet, we can say, published. I hope it will
Hmm.
come. There are some information in the USP, United States Pharmacopoeia, but it's not as binding as an official regulation. But there are some guidelines. Probably the first country who started really to be clear on what is needed is Australia, because Australia also some years ago, 8 years ago, Australia say, if you every time, if you tell me that you can manage temperature excursion during the distribution, you have to show me the data. You have to show me the stability data. And so it means that if we look at the current regulation from Australia, you have to share with the authorities your stability data. If you don't share your stability data, you are not allowed to have any temperature excursion. So that's the evolution, and probably that will come more and more everywhere in the world. The first thing is you have to keep the product within the right range. If you go
Hmm.
outside that range, you have to support that based on stability data. But that will be more and more, I think, asked. And that's the side from the, we can say, regulatory authorities. And also what we see more and more, it's a push coming from the distributors, asking the manufacturers, hey, please help us, because
Mm.
we know it can happen. We have temperature execution, but we don't know how to manage that. So please help us. So, and they also know that there are some flexibility, there are some data, and they are trying to have access to some information, but it's not easy, because if we look at the current regulation, uh, it's not allowed to share the data. When you submit a file for a new product, in the file you put the stability data, but that data are for the regulators, and the information that can be published on the leaflet attached to the product
Hmm.
is for the earth care practitioner. When you have a box in which is written temperature excursion is allowed for 24 hours outside to 8, between 8 and 25 degrees. It's also mentioned information is specifically for the healthcare practitioner, which is a doctor. So that information cannot be used by the people who are responsible for the distribution. And so that's the gap we have today. So evolution is before no clear information. More and more, we have some clear information. You have to do that. You have to do that. And some countries are asking to see the data before to accept
Yeah.
any temperature description.
And actually, one of the challenges when dealing with global supply chain distribution is precisely these different regulations on different countries. I mean, it's not the same shipping something to Australia, shipping to Europe, and shipping to the US, because the regulations that impact the product are precisely different. So that how a global organization, you mentioned that you were working at GSK for a very long time, how from a global organization that ships products everywhere in the world, how do you manage those specificities?
We don't make any difference. We apply the stringent regulation to everybody.
Okay, take the worst case scenario,
Yeah,
and that became the standard. Okay, that's a safest approach.
yeah.
Very good.
And for example, if a specific country, I remember some uh, countries are also ask, okay, because in some countries the receipt of the product is done by the authority. So they open the
Hmm.
pallet shippers, they check the data, and also we remember at that time some countries, some health authorities called us, we see a temperature excursion, we cannot accept your product, and we had to explain why it's acceptable. And it was a bit the same discussion as the request from Australia, show me your data. And when you discuss with them, when you show the data you have, it's possible to accept. And at the end, they accept the concept of temperature excursion under a specific, we can say, allowance level, but based on
Allowance.
data. So,
Excellent.
and that's applicable to everybody.
Absolutely,
There
absolutely.
is
So
no
then
reason. There is no reason to make any difference.
we are coming again and again to the concept of collaboration and data sharing. That
Hmm.
becomes crucial.
Hmm.
And at some point, I believe that, yeah, facilitating this data sharing along the chain will facilitate also the life of everyone. Um, we are reaching till the end of the episode, Fabian. But I have a final question in terms of environmental impact. There are the 2030 objectives, the ODS, and etc. that were defined by Europe, and we all know that keeping temperatures at -60 and -20 degrees is very energetically inefficient. So it consumes a lot of resources. Also, in terms of temperature tracking, we use a lot of data loggers, and most of them are single use. Um, how do you think that this new environmental uh, regulation will impact the cold chain and supply chain distribution of pharma products?
I think if we want to reduce the impact, I come back to what I explained before. If you know your product allowance against temperature excursion, it's possible to reduce the use of loggers, the use of polystyrene. And for example, if you ship a product uh, during the winter somewhere,
Hmm.
and if you can show that the temperature surrounding the product is between 8 and 25 degrees during the overall during the shipment, if you know that you have a budget, if you are in, why do you have to protect it?
Yeah, it will not be out of range anyhow.
Yeah, I think what is important is to know the temperature. The way, and now as we don't master very often the overall supply chain because the collaboration is not enough strong,
Hmm.
we don't take any risk. We add additional protections. But if you
Yeah,
trust your supply chain, you can decide to ship it without any gel packs or any insulation material, or to limit the amount of gel pack, or to limit the amount of insulation material. I remember we had discussion also with some countries. The countries told us, okay, we use a single standard truck up to 28. So it means that during the shipment, during the transfer of the product between the storage area and the clinic, we use these trucks. Uh, and imagine that if that shipment time is maximum 24 hours, and if you know that during these 24 hours the truck will be used doing, for example, 20 hours, so
hmm
it means that you know that during 20 hours your product will be between 2 to 8. So you don't need any protection. And if you have your stability data telling you, okay, you can go during these 24 hours, if you can go during, for example, 4 hours at a temperature between 8 and 24, the 4 hours will represent the transfer time between the storage and the truck and the final storage. If you can show that at the end your temperature profile is within that, we can say profile, it's fine. You don't need to protect anything. The only thing we'll have to do, and you can use the AI to predict the temperature. Because you
yeah,
have some today, we know it's not always precise, but we know approximately what will be the external temperature.
we know what's the external temperature, and we can also, yeah,
But when I say we know, we know if it will be above 25, below 25, the risk. You can measure the risk, and for that you can use
yeah,
the AI.
exactly.
And
Maybe you don't know exactly if it's gonna be
uh,
22 or 25, but then you know that you can define the threshold indeed.
yeah, yeah. There is one supplier of software, and that supplier has the temperature profiles, we can say, for the world. And you can ask, show me the probability. What was the most probable temperature curve between that area and that area at that period of the year? System will tell you that's a risk profile. Based on that, you can decide on your cold chain solution.
Yeah, exactly. And it's and here we can spend hours and hours discussing about shipments between Europe and South America. One we are in winter, the other one it's in summertime. We can also add into the equation the climate change, how the temperatures are increasing significantly. It's not the same shipping something like 50 years ago than shipping it now. The temperature curve has definitely changed, and yeah, and something is it's all about a risk evaluation, how which are the chances, and because by measuring properly the risk we can better take decisions on which is the protection needed, which are the monitoring necessary to make this transportation or shipment in a safer way.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for example, probably the most we can say advanced companies that are responsible to ship everywhere in the world very often, and the most advanced one use two packouts, one winter, one summer packout. According to the
Uh-huh.
period of the year and according to the destination, they decide to use the packout A or the packout B. By doing that, you can reduce at the end the overall impact. But at the end, why do we limit the number of packets to two? Probably sometime it's possible to add additional packets. When I end the final, probably the best one will be the packets without any protection. When you know
Yeah.
that the external temperature and the system you use for the transportation will keep your product within that range. But it's really, really complex. So it's why AI for that will be helpful. There are so many
So
parameters to take into consideration. It's
it's
really
funny,
challenging.
Fabian, because we started about the challenge of building on the data capture and how we can make devices that can measure more properly and for a longer time the temperature. And we are ending up the conversation that actually the best is not measuring at all and just controlling the risk of the term
No,
of
no,
a
yeah,
possible excursion.
but
But
I think we have to make a difference because at minimum it will be always needed to show me the data. So even the if you have a system that will manage all these interactions, external temperature, way of a kind of shipment, type of shipments, type of packouts, and blah blah blah. So that will help you to take the best decision to reduce, we can say, the environmental impact. But at the end, you will have to show that the product has been kept within the expected range and within the defined temperature budget you have. So you have to measure it.
it's also, yeah, it's also a matter of trust. And we came back to your initial dream, which is the one that received the final product
Yeah.
can check by themselves that the product has been kept in a good condition along the journey. It's so I don't have any further questions. I would like to summarize it with two words that which are, I think, the key words that has been circled back again and again during the conversation. One is collaboration in terms of data sharing, in co-development of new products, and the trust which is necessary between the private companies and the regulator, the organizations. I would say that collaboration and trust are the main concepts that we should build on top of those. Is there anything else that you would like to share, Fabian? Any key point or key message that you would like to share to the audience?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Okay, then because the podcast is called Secrets, we will. I would like to finalize the episode, uh, so you can explain a secret or a challenging situation. Let's say it this way. So I don't know if you have prepared something. We asked you that in a bit in advance, but okay, let's see. Basically, we are making a ranking from all the people who are joining, and at the end, the winner will get something. I've not prepared yet what the winner is gonna take, but basically the question is which is the coldest situation, the colder situation that you have experienced, or the main challenge that you successfully overcome or not overcome during your professional career, and that challenge will be evaluated by a very good committee. That the committee, it's me. I will give you and we will create a ranking with all the different challenges and their responses. So, Fabian, uh, which is the biggest challenge that you have experienced during your career?
One day we received a call from a site. somewhere in the world, and that girl told us, okay, we have an issue, and the issue is that it was for a sea freight shipment.
Hmm.
So a full container was, we can say, outside the temperature range since the beginning of the shipment. So we had three three 3 days of temperature excursion above 8, but below 25. And so product had to be rejected based on the standard we had at that time. We, even if we had a stability budget, we were outside the stability budget.
Hmm.
And they have asked me, what can we do? It was a full container, so it was not one dose. So, and I told them, well, give me some time, I will come back with a proposal. And that was really challenging. And the proposal was at the end quite simple. And it's quite well linked with what we discussed. It's about collaboration and visibility. What I told them, okay, if we can demonstrate that it's possible to demonstrate that at the end the product will be maintained during the overall stability budget until the final, we can say, receipt of the product at the clinic, it will be fine. But for that, we need really to adapt all the data we had according to. Imagine you have 3 buckets of 10. If in the first bucket you have used 15, you know you so 15, it's 30. You know it remains still 15,
Hmm.
even if you. And the challenge was really to discuss with the people who were responsible with the next steps. Okay, adapt your operation in order to stay within a defined temperature range lower than expected. So it means that, and it was accepted. And we put in place a system that will allow us to get all the data for the operation done in the country until the
Hmm.
final receipt of the product by the clinic. So at the end, we can say we had the full visibility on the overall temperature profile since the arrival of the product in the country, just after having these 3 days of temperature excursion outside the allowance. And
Wow.
really, it was really a nice collaboration because we had to discuss with the site who received the product in that country, and we had to, because they had to do some additional operation on the product, so they had to manage the product at ambient temperature for operations. Then we had to discuss with the logistic provider who was responsible to ship the product. We had to discuss with the people, the logistics guys who were responsible for the distribution. And for example, it was important to discuss with local authorities, telling them, guys, we had an issue. However, we must supply, we can say that center, or that region,
Hmm.
because it was a region with that country, with those 100,000 doses. And how can we do that? And with them, we agreed that okay, we will use one single oil center in order to reduce the spread of the product. So everybody was fully aligned on the final objective. We have to stay within that budget, and it was possible to discuss with uh, the team in place in the country, to the team who was in charge for the distribution, and also with the local authorities, and also with the clinics, telling them, "Hey guys, it's really important. Everybody has to do the
To
max, and
contribute to make this
to
a
control."
success.
That was really challenging because with that example, it was not only the view from the pharma manufacturing side. It was really an end-to-end view, as I
Mhm.
said, and it was possible at the end to have the product received within the budget, and everything was fine. So it was
Do
really
you
interesting. It
do you
looks, yeah.
remember by chance which was the value of the full container? Is that something that you can share or remember?
It was a full container of vaccine. I, it's what a huge value. It's $1 million. Huh?
Okay, that information will help me to evaluate the challenge.
No, imagine if in one container, if you can put, for example, how many pallets can we put in on that? 13 pallets, something like that, around 15 pallets. On
Mm.
one pallet, you have 20. In one pallet, you have thousands of vaccines. Huh? No,
Yeah.
no,
Okay.
that's a huge, huge value. No, no.
Serious money. Serious money.
But it's why it was possible to because of but I think the value is not so important because if I remember well, it was a flu vaccine, so
Hmm.
there was also the Earth demand. That's
Yeah.
really
Exactly.
important. So
The
it's not
urgency to
it's not
supply that
always
region.
value. Huh? If you had to supply, if you have an agreement, if you have an order, you have to ship. The people are waiting to get your vaccine because they
Exactly.
have to protect the people. That's the most important
The
point.
population.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So very good. I think that you deserve at least an eight. I will make the final ranking later on, but at least it's an eight. So congratulations,
Okay.
Fabian.
Yeah, we'll see.
And before closing it, who do you think that we should invite next? Who can help us to share the importance of pharma distribution and cold chain? Uh, just before completing, who do you think that we should invite next to this series of conversations about cold chain and pharma distribution?
I think it's good to have the overall picture. So if you start with a pharma manufacturer, from the shipper, from a shipper side, it will be interesting to invite someone who is responsible for the distribution. So a logistic service provider, for example,
Hmm.
that's one element. It will be also interesting to have a discussion with doctors. How do they perceive the cold chain, the doctors? Because at the end, or a pharmacist, and also the people who are in charge of the local distribution. Uh, Logistic service providers are more there to move the product, but there are other people who are responsible to store and to distribute the product. So these guys also is interesting to interview, and also the final doctor. By doing that, you will cover the overall supply chain.
Yeah, it's the end-to-end visibility and coverage.
Uh,
Perfect. All right, so we are reaching till the end. Thank you very much, Fabian, for your insights and good conversation. Hope you had a good time talking.
Thank you, Miguel. I wish you the best.
Yeah, thank you,
Bye
Fabian.
bye. Bye bye.
Talk to you soon. Ciao.